It's been over 6 months since I got my latest computer, a 2019 27-inch iMac with a Retina display. Now, in this video, I'm going to take you through some of my favorite features of the iMac, how it's held up over the past 6 months of use, and why I chose an iMac over a comparable MacBook Pro as well as a Windows PC. Let's dive in. The 2019 iMac's design, while nothing new, still holds a now classic, clean, and minimalist look. The bezels seem huge by today's standard, but once you're looking at the screen, you kind of tune them out anyways, just like some tune out the notch on the latest iPhones. The iMac is an all-in-one computer, so you don't have to deal with a tower and a monitor, just the monitor and the stand, which can be removed in case you want to mount your iMac to something else. The version I got has a 3.6 GHz i9 8-core processor with a Radeon Pro Vega 48 graphics card. Basically something that could get the job done when it comes to graphics-intensive programs like photo editing and especially 4K video editing. Now, why didn't I just get a souped-up MacBook Pro, you may ask? Well, my previous computer actually was a MacBook Pro and it served me well for about 6 or 7 years, but I found with my MacBook Pro that I almost never took it off my desk. It was really just there as an editing machine, and I never took advantage of that portability. And unfortunately, with MacBook Pros, that portability that you get with it, that's so great for those who do need to take them on the road, it doesn't come without some sacrifices though. The first one being with the iMac, Apple doesn't have to worry about battery life because the computer is always plugged in. So it can put in higher performance specs into the iMac than it could with a comparable MacBook Pro. Second is expandable memory. With the 27-inch version of the iMac, there's a RAM door in the back of the machine that makes it easy to install additional RAM yourself that you can get from third parties, saving hundreds of dollars off Apple's RAM prices. The cord management at the back of the device is pretty simple. The wireless mouse, Magic Trackpad, and keyboard work extremely well, and while it is awkward to have to charge the mouse with a lightning cord, I find the newer Magic Mouse works better than the older ones with AA batteries. My older Magic Mouse sometimes has issues connecting to the iMac, and I've also found that its AA batteries, they just deplete really quickly compared to the newer Magic Mice, which of course have the rechargeable battery built in. Now, one of the other things I really like about this iMac design is, unlike a lot of other Apple products where Apple has typically been taking ports away or forcing users over to just use USB-C, this iMac has a great set of ports in the back. You have 4 standard USB-A ports, 2 USB-C ports, an SD card slot, a 3.5mm jack for audio output, and there is a gigabit Ethernet port as well. The display on the 2019 iMac is great. It's not really different from the one released in 2017, but for my video and photo editing needs, it's perfectly crisp, has great color accuracy, and having the monitor in Final Cut actually be able to display a full 4K resolution correctly is a nice touch. Setting up the iMac was an easy process as well, taking very few steps. Apple makes it pretty easy to either set up your computer as a new computer or copy over data from an older Mac you may have. macOS feels very snappy on this iMac, and with the 64 gigs of RAM I've installed on my machine, I have no issues at all with having different programs open at once. When Apple first announced this computer last year, some were worried that the thermal management would be pushed to the limit and you would either hear fan speeds running to the max all the time, or worse, Apple would throttle the computer's performance. In the months since, I'm happy to report that in my day-to-day use, especially with tasks that are graphics intensive like gaming and video editing, I never notice the fan getting up to its max speed, and I don't notice any lag or overall sluggishness with any graphics intensive task. Many other publications and channels have tested this machine further and seem to corroborate that this machine doesn't suffer from the thermal throttling that the MacBook Pro released before it suffered from. Let's talk about gaming a little bit more just for 1 second. This is one of the only areas I've found with this iMac that is actually a downside. Macs in general are not thought of as great gaming machines compared to machines that run Windows, and for this iMac, that is also true. However, the thing that solves that issue is called Bootcamp. Bootcamp allows you to partition your Mac's hard drive and install Windows on your Mac. The Windows image is actually free to download from Microsoft's website. Running Bootcamp solves the performance issues I was having with one of my favorite games, City Skylines, which is a pretty graphics-intensive game as well as a CPU-taxing one. On Windows, the game runs much smoother, and I can run it on higher settings than I could compared to running the game on Mac OS. Speaking of Windows, I should probably address why I got an iMac over a comparable Windows PC. The reason for that is I personally like Mac OS better. It has a great aesthetic design to it. It runs Final Cut Pro 10 and is optimized to run Final Cut Pro 10 really well, and I've had less reliability issues with Mac OS over the years compared to when I had a Windows PC back in the day. Alright, before we wrap up this review, I want to talk about some of the things that I dislike about this iMac. And first, let's talk about that front-facing camera. The 2019 version of the iMac has the same HD FaceTime camera with a 720p resolution that the 2017 iMac version also had. The camera's resolution just doesn't look very good, and I wish Apple had upgraded it. Now, the other downside isn't actually a downside with my machine the way I have mine configured, but I'm going to ding Apple for it anyways, and what I'm talking about here are hard drives. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but in 2020, there should be no option to add a hard drive into an iMac, like period. Hard drives are one of the main culprits for slow Macs in general, and they should just be completely eliminated from the iMac line. iMac should start with a Fusion drive, not a hard drive. Now, if you are thinking about getting an iMac and you are looking at that very lower tier in the price points of iMacs, and you're thinking about the entry-level iMac, don't do it. You will regret it. Either go for a cheaper used version of either a previous version of the iMac or a used 2019 version of the iMac. It's been 6 months now. You can probably find some out there. Or spend a couple $100 more and get an iMac with a Retina display and at least a Fusion hard drive. If you're in the market for an iMac and are confused with all of the options or feel slightly overwhelmed, here's some advice for how to configure your iMac. If you want your Mac to feel really snappy and all around very speedy, my recommendation would be to configure it with a solid-state hard drive, or otherwise known as an SSD. I would definitely do that over a Fusion drive and definitely over just a normal hard drive. Now, if you like to run multiple applications at a time on your Mac and you want it to feel really snappy, then I would recommend at least getting 16 gigs of RAM, if not 32 gigs of RAM. Now, if you are looking at the 21-inch version of the iMac, I would also implore you to price compare it to the 27-inch version. And when you do that, keep in mind that the 27-inch version has that RAM door in the back. So you could theoretically, like I did, configure the 27-inch version with 8 gigs of RAM, get it, rip that RAM out, put in your own RAM thanks to that door in the back of that machine, which the 21-inch version just simply does not have. If you go with the 27-inch version, you can save yourself some money by buying third-party RAM. Now, if you're going to use your iMac like me for programs like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Adobe Premiere Pro, as well as Final Cut Pro 10, and especially if you're going to run some of these programs simultaneously, you're going to want to make sure that you have a good processor in that machine, but more importantly, you're going to want to make sure you have a good graphics card. I maxed out and got the Radeon Pro Vega 48 8GB graphics card on my machine, and it served me well. That card plus the i9 8-core Intel processor chip in my machine has resulted in my editing workflow just being buttery smooth. Now, I know we didn't get into everything in this review of the 2019 iMac, including things like Geekbench scores, etc. So if that more technical type of information is something that you were looking for, I've left a couple of links below in the video description that should help you out there. I've also linked to a video by MaxTech they did a video of the 8 buying mistakes you can make when trying to buy an iMac. I thought they did a great job with it, so I've linked that below as well. Well, that's it for our review of the 2019 iMac. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did and you liked this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe to the channel to see more product review videos like this one. Well, that does it for me. I'm Josh Tedder from 6 Months Later. Thanks for watching.